Hello, everybody. I'm Beth Pinsker with Reuters, and I'm here with Alexa von Tobel, who is the founder of LearnVest, which got sold to Northwestern Mutual in 2015. I was going way back in time. 2015, and then Alexa took over as the Chief Innovations Officer. And then now is about to launch her own venture capital firm, right? Called Insight Capital?
Inspired Capital.
Inspired Capital, I'm sorry.
We kept it simple.
Because there's not a lot out on that, I wanted to just give you the opportunity to tell people what is going on with that. What can you tell us about it at this stage?
Sure, so I wish I could say a lot more, but Inspired Capital is a brand new early stage venture fund focused on seed Series A. As you can imagine, fintech and insurtech are some of the biggest categories we're going to go after, given just our backgrounds and roots. And other stuff that's kind of public on it right now is that we have a pretty special team of people who have built and scaled and sold and exited companies as our core investing team. So we're really excited to kind of be in the trenches with entrepreneurs, having been the entrepreneurs ourselves. So one of my business partners is Pinsker, Obama's former Secretary of Commerce. Lucy Deland, one of the co-founders of Paperless Post, Mark Batzian, who I've had the pleasure of working with for a long time. We ran Northwestern Mutual Ventures together, and he was head of strategy for LearnVest. So just a small but mighty core team of investors.
Now, you've announced a couple of things that you've invested in already, Lemonade being one of them. Can you talk about what caught your eye about coming into the field, ready to go? Like, why did you choose those very first things?
So in my personal portfolio, I've had the pleasure of investing in some great companies like Lemonade and Ethos and Tally. And I think some of the things that are poised to disrupt our wallets. From the Northwestern Mutual Venture portfolio, we invested in companies like Chime and Ladder Life, and some other great companies. But I think we always kind of stay core to our roots of the consumer lens of what's happening. At the end of the day, we like the consumer angle. Having been the consumers ourselves, having built LearnVest, which was a consumer disruption. LearnVest at its core, if you don't know about it, was TurboTax for financial planning for America. So I think we look at where do we think consumers really have an unmet need. And then for us at Inspired Capital, we're really focused on technology stacks. So we like full stack technologies. We like where we're seeing that, having been on the inside of an incumbent at Northwestern Mutual, I was their chief digital officer for the first 3 years, and then chief innovation officer and responsible for all of the technology and digital strategy. One of the things that I found was companies that have full stack technologies can move a lot faster, and I think provide true value to the incumbents. So we'll often look, one of our other venture partners in Inspired Capital is a great guy named Ming Feng. And so we do full technology reviews early and things like that.
So when you went from starting your own company to then selling it to a major entity and then trying to work within a corporate structure, that's not always the dream of a lot of people. You want the money from the sale. You want to have created something fantastic that somebody wants to buy and spend a lot of money on, but then you work at the company, and obviously you've moved on from that. So I wanted to see if you could talk about what lessons you might have learned about that full life cycle, and now you're about to start again.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, so I sold LearnVest in March 25th of 2015. Literally had our first child that weekend, so that was a pretty intense week in my life. I don't think I'll ever, I always joke, like it pales in comparison to parenthood, makes everything else seem kind of easy. And then I was at Northwestern Mutual just up until this year, January 15th. So was there for almost 4 full years, had a tremendous time. And I think actually it's helped me have a much more thoughtful perspective about innovation. Because one, when you're inside the incumbents, the multi-billion-dollar companies that need technology and need to think differently and also do great things really well. One of the things I say, and if you're out there and an entrepreneur, come chat with us. We're quite helpful at helping to think about your technology strategy and what you need to do in business development and huge partnerships, and some of the things that will help you grow. Personally, it was just a foundational experience to be able to go and be the entrepreneur that breaks everything and moves quickly, to go inside a really big company where you think about scale and resources and budgets, and I had a massive budget.
And things don't move so fast, right?
And things don't move so quickly. And I think it just, everything is about understanding the contours of life and like being able to see the small strategic differences. And it gave me a full vantage point that I wouldn't have had before, that I think helps us as investors be more aggressive and more thoughtful in how we want to think about deploying our own capital.
When you launched LearnVest, what did you think about as the sort of secret sauce to that? You referred to it as TurboTax for financial planning, but what does that really mean to you? Like, what did it really do to disrupt and innovate?
Yeah, so if you really just step back and look at what's happening here in America, about 78% of the country lives paycheck to paycheck. That's actually up from 74% just a few years ago. So most of the country can't think about growth around their wallet. That would be a lovely thing if we could get everybody to think about investing. It's just not the core problem for most of the country. What was special about LearnVest, and we had this huge kind of war room strategic board where we mapped out everything that existed and where we were. And we always looked like this tiny island over here that just like either fundamentally had it wrong or we were going to be really successful. And our vantage point was simply that people are often building technologies for the top 1 to 5% of the country. And keep in mind, this was now 6-7 years ago when we were doing our mapping. And what LearnVest did was cash flow-based planning. So we took everyone in the country and built financial planning software based on their actual cash flows. Most of the financial planning softwares, there were 4 other types that were out, really were designed for the top 5% of the country, where you weren't worried about them paying their bills because they had enough money. So you were worried about the extra $10,000 or $100,000 or $1 million and figuring out how to optimize that. So kind of when everybody zag, we went over here and we built this bigger potential, more applicable technology that was focused on the cash flows of a normal American family whose household income was $75,000. Super challenging to build. We had multiple patents. It was I would say, a really hard problem to crack. But once we cracked it, it was very valuable to lots and lots of players. And so that gives you a sense of kind of the war room of strategy that we have at Inspired Capital. Is we like to look at the playing field. We like to understand where the gaps are, and then think about the very specific applications that, if built properly, either become very, very big companies because they meet the mass needs of American society, or fill a really clear gap for a big incumbent. So that's essentially what we did at LearnVest. It happened to have a really great social mission to it. I became a certified financial planner in the process.
I was just about to ask you about that, because Harvard Business School is one thing.
Yeah.
You get a certain degree of experience and inspiration out of that. Yeah. But LearnVest really came out of more about the financial planning aspect. And being a certified financial planner, you get a certain amount of training in the trenches, really.
So I was a total dropout. I dropped out of Harvard Business School on December 18th of 2008. Pretty much at the bottom of the worst recession. Like, TV screens were just like plummeting that day as I dropped out. And then became a certified financial planner and just really passionate about understanding the cash flows of the American wallet, which I think poises us to be an even better investor, because we've stared at the decisions American families have to make with their wallets. And I think often we think that there's a lot of extra ability that doesn't actually exist when you get down to brass taxes and think about cash and what people actually have to spend and how people are really thinking about their wallets.
Exactly. And now your new book is exactly on that topic, right?
Yeah.
So it's called Financially Forward, and it's looking at the next evolution of the digital wallet and how people are spending in the future. So let's talk about that for a few minutes. Like, what's the key element that you focused on?
Sure. So Financially Forward just came out a bit ago. And I wrote it because my first book, Financially Fearless, came out, it was a bestseller, and that was now in 2013, so it's been a while, and I think just technology's moved so quickly. What I really did, and just the type of investor I like to be, is I like to step back and think about what are all the things that we believe are true, and where do we think the world is trending. And so the book is about the biggest trends around the evolving wallet, the cash flows, and what we see happening here in America. And for me, it was just, one, it was really pretty geeky, but it was pretty fun to sit down and actually just put together, where do we think things will be in 5, 7, 10 years? And we're just fundamentally living differently as a population. We're living much longer. The gig economy is having tremendous impacts. The way we think about our free time is going to evolve rapidly. And as a result, you have to remember, money is everything. If you think like mob strategies, like follow the cash, follow the money, it's a pretty good way to think about really being able to understand life and society. And so for us, we just follow the money. And from there, you can actually get really great insights onto what will be true. And that's a little bit of how we think.
I know one thing that you and I are both passionate about is helping Americans build up emergency savings, which we are terrible at doing. What do you think people in this room could innovate to make that happen for Americans? So somehow in their digital wallet or through digital technology, help them find a way to put away $400 for a car repair, or anything. Just get them started on their way to being out of like debt and instability and all of that.
Yeah, I mean, the really sad and scary truth is like the income equality gap is going to keep getting bigger, which I wish wasn't the case, but it is. I think that when you're talking small amounts of money to try to get somebody to save, that choice is a very personal one. They're literally not able to do other things as a result of it. It's not, oh great, you're automating $50 out of my account and that doesn't impact me. It's like those are actually having material impacts on most people. I just got off the red eye from Denver, and I always like to just go to other groups of people and talk about what's happening around wallets, because it really does remind me, people in the middle of the country are more worried about just what's happening with innovation. We on the coast constantly get to see it and live it and see the great benefits. And I think, one thing I hope continues to happen is just a deep automation around these decisions, because even if you can help somebody just take 50 cents out of their wallet, $1 out of their wallet, at some point money will flow like water, in the same way that, I heard for all the ride sharing companies, they said you can stand on a building and look down and cars will flow like water. The same thing will be true for money. And right now money's really fragmented. The way it moves is fragmented. It's there's far too many people that sit in between each transaction. If you think about it, we get paid every 2 weeks. That's essentially you're giving your employer a 2-week advance on your effort. So I just think that as we fast forward, we're going to see just far more automation, things moving much faster, and I think that the American family wins in that future. And again, that's what I sat down and wrote Financially Forward about, was trying to think about what are the things I'm excited about, what's the innovation that should happen, where are we headed. But it's going to be probably, I think, the most exciting decade for fintech. I know it's why we're all in this room, but trillions of dollars of value will be created in this category, and it's not surprising that I decided to set up shop to go after that, having come from what I spent the last 15 years of my career doing.
Insurance, how do you see the digital wallet affecting that? Some of the companies have come along. Anything that makes renters insurance easier for people is a plus in my book, because not enough people have it. And they need it, and they don't understand that they need it. So, if you're starting from that low point of education, does just the ease of transaction make it happen, or do you need some other behavioral element to get in there?
Having spent a lot of time on the other side of the innovation around insurance, one thing I'll just say is the entire insurance category is just ripe for epic disruption. I think everybody knows that, but let's put it differently. The way that we think about insurance today is so category focused. So if you think about life insurance, you have disability insurance, you have long-term care insurance, you have term insurance, you have whole insurance. And fundamentally, those are multiple different types of insurance to just insure me. Why do we think about them differently? Why are they fundamentally different streams of categories that I have to go buy, and each time I buy, I have to think about giving fluids, I have to think about talking to doctors. It just doesn't make sense. It was never set up in a consumer-centric way. It was set up in a business development-like way.
You can't even cross state lines with the insurance.
Correct. And I think what we're going to see is not only just innovation on the front end of that, but just massive innovation on the back end of that. So I would just say, if you're in this room and you're interested in anything around the insurance category, email me. I'm Alexa@inspiredcapital.com, Alexa@inspiredcapital.com. I would love to talk about, in far greater detail, about what I think we'll see around disruption there. Also really interested in meeting all the entrepreneurs who want to go evolve that category, as it's one that we've spent far more time thinking about than your average person.
I was looking to see who was writing down your email address.
Yep.
Write it down. It means it. What other areas do you think are ripe for disruption in the digital wallet space?
Yeah. So again, I think we sit in this room, and I think probably everybody also knows that. But in case not, we think about fintech just as literally being like your wallet, but money is all through our lifespan, right? And I think that the way we're living is evolving really quickly. That's going to have major impacts on our wallets. So 40% of the country's freelance workers, 160 million people between the United States and Europe. When you're literally monetizing in really different ways, you no longer have a salary, and that employer does things for you like set up your 401k and help you with your health benefits and take your taxes out. I think we're going to see how the individual manages their own basic wallet is going to look really differently. So I'm really interested in things around this more fluid earning lifestyle that we have, and all of the technologies that can be supportive of that. So that's an area we're pretty interested in.
Taxes for that are really complicated right now. If you could simplify freelance taxes.
100%. I think that's a category. The other thing is we're going to live so much longer. So every year you stand to live another year, and that's not a riddle. That's actually just what's happening with science. And as a result, people at 65 are wanting to earn longer. So boom tech is an entire category, and one of the companies we invested in was Kinder, which is a retirement accumulation software, which again is I think of it as a LearnVest-like product on the other side of the fence, which is doing something that's relatively unsexy but very, very valuable, which is helping people who don't totally want to retire and will continue to earn income make sense of the regulatory environment around your required minimum distributions at 70 and a half. You have to take money out of your 401k and your IRA and Social Security.
Unless the government changes it all next year.
Unless the government changes it all next year, which...
Well, next week. They're voting on a bill that's going to rip that all apart.
And again, helping people make sense of those cash flow streams. And 99% of baby boomers have a phone, an iPhone, a smartphone. And so, again, really thinking about all the different big categories where a 65-year-old has a ton of money, a 20-year-old has none. The average millennial has a net worth of $8,000. So going after populations that have real assets and thinking about how to innovate for them is another thing that we spend our time doing.
Gotcha. Well, thank you very much. We're going to go do the underrated, overrated now.
Sure.
If you'll play along at home. We'll start with artificial intelligence, AI.
I think just underrated in every way. I think that software will be able to rewrite so much more than we can even imagine right now. And I would actually use the analogy of when the internet came out in 2000, we could never have predicted that. And literally my parents' rules for me growing up were like, never get in a car with a stranger and go anywhere. And actually that's what Uber is. And I think in the same way that we can't predict the future of what will happen with AI right now, I think it is fundamentally underrated about the innovation it will create to us day to day.
What about cryptocurrency?
I'm going to say underrated. I know it's overhyped in the short term right now, but I think long term, when you scan out 30 years, it's underrated.
Gotcha. Fintech unicorns?
Depends which one.
You're
underrated or overrated.
You're a believer. IPOs?
I appreciate the same thing that the group before discussed, which was actually having discipline. I'm a recession entrepreneur starting a company in 2008, back when my valuation was $5 million and we raised $1 million, and I had to have very clear plans, and I just missed that discipline. And I think that I just say I'm a paranoid entrepreneur who always is prepared for a nuclear winter, and so I appreciate fiscal discipline, as you can imagine, given my background.
Gotcha. Well, that is all the time we have. We just hit 0. And next up is Julia Chernova from the Wall Street Journal. So stay tuned.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.